Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Lisa Maurer, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate, as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance, reform, and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The system provides clean funding for qualified participating candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules. These include contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, and participating in commission debates like this one. We encourage audience questions, so please utilize the note card that was given to you when you entered the room, write a question on it, and hold it up. Our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. If you have a question for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the card. It will be considered during the second half of the debate. When those questions come in, we screen them for clarity and may edit them to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for about 1 hour, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. Tonight's debate includes 1-minute opening statements. Then the first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes for each candidate to answer the same question. After all candidates have responded to the question, the first responding candidate will be given an additional 30 seconds, and we'll rotate which candidate responds first each time. The second half will allow a different question per candidate with 1 minute to answer, and then the other candidate will have an optional 30-second comment in there. And then we'll conclude with 1-minute closing statements. We ask that you remain polite to all of the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. Tonight's participants are Beryl Baker, a Green candidate for State Representative, District Number 3. Andres Cano, a Democratic candidate for State Representative, District Number 3. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name for opening comments and will progress from that starting point. The order for the second half will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name. Beryl, will you start the opening remarks, please? 1 minute.
Hi, I'm Beryl Baker, a lifelong resident of Tucson, raised on the west side, went to Menlo Park and Tucson High. We do have trauma-induced dyslexia, which the good teachers of Menlo Park Elementary School help shape into a well-educated, thoughtful, independent thinker. It does, however, cause us to not be a glib speaker. We have been involved in environmental activism since 1986. We are endorsed by Arizona Now. As we've gotten older, we realize that life may not make us wiser, but it does give a much broader perspective to our community and history. Along with our community and environmental activism, we have worked in agriculture, science, schools, retail, transportation, among many other experiences in life. We know how to work hard and will apply the same work ethics and life experiences to work in serving you, the people of Arizona, as Beryl Baker, State Representative in LD3.
Thank you. Andres, your 1-minute opening comment.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I want to begin by thanking the Clean Elections Commission and those in the audience who joined us tonight. My name is Andres Cano, and I am a first-generation college graduate, the product of our public schools, and also born and raised here in Southern Arizona. I'm running to be your state representative because I truly feel that now is the time for us to do something different about the folks that we send to the state capitol. I think when I look at the portraits of the folks that currently represent us in Phoenix, I don't see a lot of folks like me who are young, who are Latino, who are LGBT, and who are ready to put Arizonans first. I am really humbled to be one of the Democratic nominees in attendance tonight and to really begin a conversation about how we move forward together so that we can improve our schools, so that we can focus on criminal justice reform, and so that we can ensure that our economy and infrastructure is moving forward in a way that also protects our very precious environment and natural resources. I am very proud of being the top vote getter in our primary, but more than anything, am looking forward to tonight's conversation because I think as candidates, we should take no vote for granted and we should be open to listening to our constituents and hopefully with your support, my soon-to-be constituents come January. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will begin the portion of the debate where each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the same question. And Andres, you're going to start out for us. And the question that you will both respond to, first with Andres, is if elected, what would be your top priorities and what would be the first piece of legislation you would want to submit?
Well, thanks for the question, and I'll speak in depth about one issue. I mentioned that I'm the product of our public schools and a first-generation college graduate. I'm very happily endorsed by teachers in the Arizona Education Association, and so what I really, really feel has to be my commitment is getting back to putting the Red for Ed movement into legislation, into an ability for us to put our K-12 system and our higher education system at the top of our list. I think there is incredible momentum at the state capitol to make this happen. We do need bipartisan support, and I'm inspired really by the teachers who have gone through so much over their years of service to our kids. And I'll tell you, one of the things that really struck out for me is a roundtable that I had over the summer with teachers who told me that they have spent so much money out of pocket that they're not even counting the receipts anymore. They are fed up with really expectations of what will come because it's clear that they've been the ones doing the hard work. And so I really want to ensure that what we're focused on is retention and recruitment of teachers that comes with good salaries and good pay. Secondly, related to public education, this district of ours that we're running to represent, Legislative District 3, includes the University of Arizona, 5 community college campuses, as well as 5 school districts. And so what we have to do is ensure that community colleges are at the top of our list. I think it's a disgrace that our community colleges get zero support from our legislature now. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to work across the aisle to be able to prioritize the investment of our community colleges and get them funded again, because what this legislature did to gut us and Maricopa Community College of state funding, I think was really, really reprehensible. And so what you'll get here is a pattern of continued commitments to focus on public education and really investing in our workforce development through our community colleges. Thank you.
Thank you. Beryl, you have 2 minutes.
I don't think I'll be taking 2 minutes. I appreciate Kano's comments because he's very articulate. My first priorities would be crafting sustainable water policies for all with an emphasis on environmental needs, quality education, which is the backbone of civilization, which also should give a living wage to teachers, affordable health care, fiscal responsibility, which is not unduly on the backs of the poor, create sustainable economic jobs, which includes rural jobs, as well as opening up more business opportunities like through recycling and reusing, solar, repurposing housing and commercial buildings, stopping I-11 through Avon Valley, which will negatively affect dark skies, lifestyle, environment, businesses, transportation, which is centered slightly different subject, transportation, which is centered on repairing infrastructure, not on making more roads to increase the heat. I'm against mining that affect Arizona's precious waters, believe in protecting cultural, historical, and archaeological sites, and for a wise use of state trust lands, but not selling off the lands that will cut into future trust income for education. Deprioritizing deprivatizing prisons with an emphasis on treatment for people that commit non-violent crimes, and protecting the rights of all people.
Thank you. Andres, you have 30 seconds to wrap up this topic.
Thank you. I share Ms. Baker's appreciation and really concern for our environment, because I think that in a place like the Sonoran Desert, what we have to do is be moving forward in a conversation that puts our natural resources first. I'm proud to be a supporter and be endorsed of this by the Sierra Club, and so what I really feel we got to do is put all of our good ideas together so that we can continue making sure that our precious land, air, and water is taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Beryl, you'll start a response to this one. According to Arizona food banks, nearly 1 in 6 adults and almost 1 in 4 children in Arizona struggle with food insecurity. How would you use your influence in the legislature to address this issue?
This is an issue that's been going on as long as I can remember. And there's been a lot of people who have worked on this issue, and we still haven't actually come to a way of solving it. I think that the people who work, the farmers, the people like Community Food Bank, the legislatures, I think this is an issue that needs to be discussed. Educators, it's not a simple yes, no, it can be solved easily, because obviously it hasn't been solved over the years, so it's not going to be an issue that I can just automatically solve just because I go to the state.
Thank you. Andres.
Thank you. You know, I feel that what I'm most excited about is to be able to focus on the economy and infrastructure, because I think that's a direct way for us to create jobs and really create opportunity. We do live in a neighborhood with lots of poverty, and I think our obligation as Southern Arizonans is to pay attention to a couple of things. Are our workers getting good wages? I'm proud to be supported by our labor unions, and I think that a living wage is the most basic human right that we can give to folks. And with that comes the ability for us to focus on those who don't have much. And I think, you know, with the legislature having so much impact on the health care and well-being of our children and low-income adults, we have to stop playing games with Washington and sign a deal that will allow, as this legislature did, the continuation of health care for our children. Because I see so much, and have seen over my last 10 years with the county, the incredible economic disparities in where you live, what zip code you come from, and I just don't think that that's fair. I think what we have to do is think of this as a piecemeal approach, and so what we do is we provide folks with good jobs. We ensure that they have good, solid health care, and also as a part of that, as Ms. Baker was mentioning, we do have to ensure that we have access to healthy food. I am so proud of some of the folks actually in our legislative district on the west side and in downtown Tucson who are young Latinos who are, you know, my age, if not a little younger, when some folks laugh at that because I'm still pretty young, is sustainable agriculture. And access to healthy food is so important, and we will incentivize that in the legislature. Thanks.
Thank you. Beryl, you have 30 seconds to wrap up this topic for us.
Well, I have to agree with what Connell says. Having been in farming myself, I know that a lot of these issues are very important. And having been involved with the community, I know that obviously I don't have all the answers, and you seem to be very astute on this subject. I'm going to pass.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, which comes from an audience member. Andres, you will start. The question is, what do you think is a true living wage?
I think it starts at $15 an hour, and we should go higher. I think, you know, I remember a couple years ago, and actually a member of the audience was a key organizer in making sure that this was at the top of our issues, and I want to say thanks so much for being a part of that movement, because what we have to do is we have to hold everybody accountable. We have to be more conscious of our spending and where we are shopping. There's definitely a list of no-no places that I encourage my loved ones to participate in, because look, you know, it's okay to be paid something, but ultimately we should have an obligation to ensure that with our power needs to also come economic justice and demanding fairness. And so I'm looking forward, to working across the aisle to remind folks on the other side who, I will acknowledge our differences, but look, when $15 an hour was proposed nationwide, when we had modest increases to our minimum wage here in Arizona, the narrative was the world was going to fall and businesses would go away. And I think, with good compromise and good solutions, I'm more concerned now about the big box developments and ensuring that small businesses are prioritized and that we're focused on looking at all the ways in which we support the majority of our businesses here in our country, which are small businesses. And I say that as an Amazon shopper. And so it's very convoluted. It's very, very complex. But I will say that what we have to do is ensure that everyone has access to a living wage and to quality health care, and this legislature has a tremendous role in advocating for that, and I think there's reason for hope. This campaign of mine as a young person has been the spirit of hope, because I think we can put Arizonans over party.
Thank you. Beryl.
I campaigned. I walked the walk. I gathered signatures for the initiatives to raise the living wage. So I strongly support raising the living wage. Unfortunately, they only want to raise it to 12 something. The Green Party actually believes we should be doing it to 15 and has been advocating that for a number of years. I agree with Kano in the sense that we have to make decisions about where we shop. And I certainly live that value in deciding where I'm going to be shopping and where I'm not going to be shopping. And I think we need to support people who are not making living wages. By one, we have to support them as people, but also to encourage the legislature to do something to actually provide a living wage, which is 15 or more.
Thank you. Andres, you have 30 seconds to wrap up this topic for us.
Sure. Well, I want to thank Beryl, because I've seen her out at the libraries and at events collecting those signatures, and I know that she does walk the walk, and I'm super grateful, because I wish more Southern Arizonans would do that. I'd say that I've been a union member since I took my first job at the county, and that was 6 years ago. And I did that really voluntarily, because I work in an environment where I can be fired at the snap of the finger. But the importance of supporting a union was super important to me, because I've seen the protections that have come over the years of having a good union that fights for you. And I think it's part of what makes my candidacy appealing is that, I'm not ever going to, sorry, I saw 30 seconds in a minute, but I'll stop there.
Thank you. All right, let's get both of your take on this question. Beryl, you will start. What do you think the legislature can do to improve the state's educational system?
I think we need to fund it properly. I think we need to get out of the way of educators, in the sense that we tend to put laws and et cetera in the way of educators in making decisions. I think that people in the legislature don't necessarily know how to create an educational system that's going to work, and I think that we should be leaving it to the people who have been trained to do that. So we need funding, proper funding, and we need to allow the educators to come up with a system that's going to work.
Thank you. Andres, your response.
Sure, and I'll finish with the last thought really quick, which is just to say that I think we have to hold each other accountable, and I think folks like Beryl, folks in this room have fought so much for the rights that are now being taken away, and so no matter a living wage or an access to higher education or to a K-12 education, what I look forward to doing is going back to the very basics. What is a union? What is a living wage? What does supporting public schools mean? Because what we've seen is a dramatic shift in state funding to where, we have a world where fiscal conservatives are okay with us funding private schools. And I think, if you're a fiscal conservative, you'd think twice about that reality. The reality is that our education system is extremely underfunded here in Arizona, and I've talked about the recruitment and retention of teachers. We have not talked about the infrastructure problems in our schools, crumbling pipes, crumbling roofs, and I think we have to prioritize that. More than all of that, what I am looking forward to being an advocate for is putting all of the special tax breaks on the table that this legislature gives out to so many folks throughout the state who most likely are not in this room and might be in a private jet right now because it's tax-free. And so I think, the best way that we can be public education advocates and supporters is ensuring that we talk about all the revenue that has, at this point, I say we're on the operating table. Some say we're at a different point in terms of education because it's not a spending problem, it's a revenue problem at the legislature. And we love giving your tax dollars away to corporations, to millionaires, and to the wealthy. And again, I think that there's a better way of us doing business.
Thank you. Beryl, 30 seconds.
I'm sorry, I forgot what I was going to say.
We'll move on. The next question, Andres, you will start. What recommendations do you have for improving public school safety?
Sure. This is obviously a very sensitive issue to Southern Arizonans who were faced with a horrible tragedy of gun violence. I'm very, very proud to be endorsed by Moms Demand Action. And what that means really is that we have a robust conversation about what it means to take care of our kids. I do not believe that putting guns in the hands of teachers is a solution. I would like to go back to a world where we can feel safe going to school, where we won't have to worry about whether we're going to have to pick up the phone or see a text message to bad news. And I will say that what we have to do is ensure that background checks and access to guns statewide are something that we talk about. I know it's hard in Arizona for us to get even the slight possibility of that getting a committee hearing. But I think, part of being a leader and part of what I'm looking forward to in being in the legislature is that we live in a world where we have seen so much violence, gun violence. It's a public health issue at this point, and how it plays into our schools needs to directly be addressed, and we need to look at the issue. I wish that our federal government would study gun violence as a health issue, because we lose so many folks every single day. Today in America, we'll lose more than 70 folks to gun violence, and I just think that with so much time our children are spending at school, we ought to be looking at this as a public health issue.
Thank you. Beryl.
I think that we need more programs concerning bullying programs. I think we need more counseling. I think we need to encourage programs that help children to play in more healthy ways with each other and to get back in touch with each other. I think that the adults that are in the children's life need to examine how they respond to each other, because violence does beget violence. So if a parent downgrades another person, neighbor, etc., their child will pick up that attitude and take it to school with them. So I think society as a whole has to be looking at how they themselves are interacting with each other, because children learn from their adults. They don't necessarily learn from what we tell them. They learn from how we our actions. So I think that we need to be looking at the bigger picture in the sense of how society interacts in order to help the children. We also need more mental health programs for children.
Thank you. Andres, your 30 seconds.
I really want to thank Ms. Baker for mentioning counseling, and as an LGBT member of the community, I can really appreciate and understand that little help goes a long way, and I'm looking forward to being an advocate for more funding for our schools so we can add more counselors instead of taking more. What I'll say briefly is that comprehensive sex ed is not just an issue about contraception. It can also be about healthy relationships, bullying, anti-bullying initiatives, and that starts really at the third grade level. And I was proud to be a part of a committee of local folks helping to improve the TUSD school district's comprehensive sex ed curriculum.
Thank you. The next question is for Beryl to start a response to. What is your position on local control, meaning more power to the state?
In contrast to federal,
So more power versus less power to the state. Local control.
I think that the U.S. Constitution already gives the state certain powers. And I think that it also gives certain powers to the federal government. I would say overall we need to follow our U.S. Constitution. So do I believe in more power to the states? Good question. I think in some instances, yes. And in some instances, I say no. It would depend on the issue from my point of view.
Thank you. Andres, your response.
Thank you. You know, I mentioned earlier I've been working for Pima County for the last 6 years, and if you count the time that I went into Supervisor Elias's office in high school and said I want to work for you, it's been almost 15 years. And so local control is very important to me, and I think really to all Arizonans, because we have to respect the elected bodies of our jurisdictions. I'm proud to be a county boy. I'm also proud to be a proud advocate of the city of Tucson, because I think what we continue to see is the state legislature try to force down our throats its own ideologies and perspectives of how our region should govern. I think that's best left to the elected officials who represent those cities, those towns, or those jurisdictions. And you know, the reason why this is so important, I'll tell you, 2/3 of our budget here in Pima County, your tax dollars, when you get that property tax bill, is a direct result now of the state shifting costs on down to local taxpayers. So while the state legislature gets away with passing balanced budgets and you know, they get to get all the ratings that they can from all the big organizations calling them tax friendly, the reality is that we're just shifting taxes onto local folks. So much so that most of our criminal justice costs now, which once used to be state costs, are now local county costs. And so local control, I'm a big advocate for it. I will continue to be in the legislature because I think it's time for us to call out the hypocrisy that we see of this legislature in shifting budgets and balancing the backs of hardworking people like you and I.
Thank you. Beryl, you have 30 seconds to wrap up this topic.
I'll pass, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Andres, you will start. According to a study published in 2018 by the Association of American Medical Colleges, the U.S. could see a shortage of 120,000 physicians by 2030. What do you think the legislature can do to prevent this shortage in Arizona?
Thank you so much. I am proud to be endorsed by the Arizona Family Physicians, and I think the reason why they invested in our campaign is because what we have to do is to really start rethinking the way healthcare is delivered, and it includes ensuring that recruitment and retention of our physicians is at the top of our list. Right now, we have a stellar College of Medicine that's trying to focus very much on this issue here at the university, and I'm very much in favor of us increasing the minority representation among our physicians, especially because you get somebody, I could think of cousins in my family who don't always take care of their health care. They're using the emergency room as their medical care instead of it being more preventative. I don't think that's smart. And what ends up happening in the process of all of this is our physicians get burned out. They leave communities. I was reading an article this weekend that said that this is 30 years ago, a physician was sharing an experience. Only 20% of your class will stay with you and will actually be a physician, and look around is what they were saying then. And to think now, with this shortage of 120,000 physicians, we have to get working on preparing the very best and the brightest, keeping them here. That's one of the problems that we have, is that we're losing lots of good folks to other states. And so, again, the need for a strong economy, for a strong infrastructure, and really a robust healthcare delivery system that actually covers people while we're at it, and ensuring that we also pay attention to the doctors who need our help too.
Thank you. Beryl.
I think Kano expressed it very well. I know when I was working for College of Medicine, doctors, we did have young doctors that came through there and did leave. But I also think that this is a shortage throughout the world. I don't think it's just indicative to Arizona. And so I think the real challenge is how to encourage them to come or stay here in relationship to leaving to go to someplace else. And that may be related to jobs, that may be related to how we pay them. It may be related to the federal, the health care that we have set up for insurance and et cetera. So thank you.
Thank you. Andres, 30 seconds.
I have no further comments.
Thank you. At this time, we will transition to the second part of the debate, where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. Additionally, the other candidate will have an optional 30 seconds to address the question. Remember, you can still submit questions via note cards and direct them to specific candidates. So the first question is for Andres. And this question is, what is your position on the state's decision to expand the Medicaid program?
Thanks. 100% supportive of that decision. I think what I find unfortunate is that we had to beg for the expansion of healthcare. I think that's a human right, and we ought to do everything we can to support our most vulnerable, but especially those who really, truly just need a little help. And I think a little help goes a long way. I think what we have to be paying attention to as well as a part of this discussion, and I'm grateful that it's come across, how can we make sure that our healthcare is a little bit more preventative, so that we aren't going to the emergency room as healthcare? How can we help folks eat better? So that's why I support the ability for us to use SNAP benefits at community gardens, for instance, that are sustainable and locally grown. And so I support it unequivocally, because I think it's the right and moral thing to do.
Thank you. Would you care to weigh in?
I agree with Kano. I think that we do need to expand healthcare. I think, as Sanders said, we need Medicare for all. We need Medicare for all. We need good healthcare for all. And we need to figure out how to make that possible monetarily. And we need to be able to bring the other side, the people who are against it. I think we need to be able to talk to them and have them help us to find the answers. If we only talk about one side and we don't get everybody on the same page, you will continue to have, it won't happen, because we'll continue to have the same loggerheads. So we need to reach across the aisles and get everybody on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on. Beryl, the next question is for you. An audience member would like to know, how can we stop uncontrolled growth in Tucson?
I'm not sure there's a way to stop uncontrolled growth, but I do believe that with climate change happening, that it is going to force us to stop. The Indians in Phoenix, they had a huge population, they had a drought, they had to leave. We have a water shortage coming. We're not taking steps in order to deal with that. We're not taking steps in order to save our environment and to save our, we're not, just the solar and et cetera. So I think in some ways that the growth will have to stop just because we won't be able to sustain here.
Thank you. Andres,
Yeah, thank you.
you have 30 seconds.
I appreciate that. Uncontrolled growth. I think the private sector has to work, but we can be smarter about it. And I think, as my colleague mentioned, it starts with ensuring that our natural resources are protected. I was in a conversation today because, I'm looking for opportunities for us to work across the aisle come January when this legislative session starts. And I think, if we're going to have development, what can we do to assist with the mitigation, whether it's off-site or on-site, so that we can also take care of this community that we love. And so I think that's how we can at least mitigate it, not stop it.
Thank you. Andres, you have the next question. What are your views on the taxation of digital goods?
Thank you. I appreciate the question, and it was actually asked at the last forum, so I'll look at the comparison. I believe that we should be looking at every opportunity to bring revenue to our state, and I truly feel that we can live in an economy that works for folks, but the reality is you go along 12th Avenue and you talk to folks in my district who are really excited to contribute to our tax base, who have brick and mortar businesses. They have just as much of a say as the digital economy does. And look, I'm an advocate for bringing revenue from all directions. And so, if for some reason exemptions become another part of this discussion about digital goods, I just truly feel that we have to hold our legislators and legislature accountable in that process, because taking away revenue from us is harmful. And so that's my position on digital goods.
Thank you. Beryl, you have 30 seconds.
At this point, I don't believe we should have taxation on digital. I do believe in brick and mortar, and I would like to find ways to make businesses that are brick and mortar more profitable. But I think there's a big concern about controlling the internet and those things. So at this point, I'm still leaning toward no taxation on digital.
Thank you. Beryl, the next question is for you. An audience member would like to know, how are you an effective alternative to the Democratic candidates?
If you're referring to the fact that he happens to be a Democrat and I happen to be registered green, I don't think that's an issue. I think I'm an alternative to both of the other candidates because I have life experiences. I don't think it shows up here because I'm not a soundbite person, and I don't think well and fast, but I have a lot of experiences and when I think about it, thoughtful responses. I'm a thinker, not necessarily a on top of immediately things. So I'm an alternative because I have a lot of life experiences, and I believe they count for something.
Thank you. Do you care to weigh in?
I will, in just saying that I so very much appreciate Ms. Baker's activism over the years, and it truly is decades long, longer than I've been on this planet. So I want to commend you for that, and I would just say that it meant a lot for you to show up, and I hope it means something and shows something to you and to your party about me participating in this forum, because I don't take any vote for granted.
Thank you. Andres, the next question is for you. What is your position on an all mail-in ballot for an election?
Thank you. I would say conceptually I am in favor of it. I think what we've seen is a surge in voting when we get folks signed up on the permanent early voter list. And that is only good for democracy and for us being able to truly make a difference. And so I think I'm in favor of it. And the only reason why I have reservations about that is that I've seen model cities utilize this that I am in favor of, and I want to see that worked on in a process that is transparent, that's thorough, and that doesn't disenfranchise anyone. And so with that, if we can get to a point where we can model that in a couple of cities and counties, and we can gradually go to an all-mail ballot, so as long as it's increasing turnout and ensuring that our democracy is robust and more accessible, then I'm all for it.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
I am against all mail-in ballots. I think that it was originally put in place for a very good reason, for people who are going to be out of town, for our service people, for our people who have disabilities and can't get to the polls. But I think it's our civil duty to go to the polls. Having been a poll worker for a lot of years, I think it showed. I saw camaraderie with the neighbors who came in and people who see each other. And the other thing is when you have mail-in ballots, most people mail them by now. And a lot of times when things happen,
Thank you. We'll move on.
it's the last 2 weeks.
Beryl, the next question is for you. An audience member would like to know, how does your work with animals benefit the children of Tucson?
Well, I've done programs in schools. I have an anti-bully program for children, and I have seen that it works. If you can touch a child before they're 7, you can help them to get back in touch with themselves, get in touch with their peers, and change their behavior and attitudes toward each other. So I think that working with any animals with children is beneficial, and I think that any of the organizations that do that are doing a great service to our community.
Thank you. All right. Andres, the next question is for you. What is your position on having a committee to oversee monies coming from casinos, lotteries, etc.?
Thank you so much. I've not heard of this one, and so I would venture to say that the best thing that I can do is say I don't know, because what I've been told is to be honest in my response to folks. What I will say, and I'm thankful to have the support of the Tohono O'odham Nation and have a good working relationship with our Pascua Yaqui tribe, which is in Legislative District 3, is that I think what we have to do as legislators is be representative in the decisions that we make. I would first turn to them in terms of this process, and you betcha that in the meeting I have with Chairman Valencia next week, I'll be asking him very much about this so that I'm equipped with it. And so that's my answer at this point.
Thank you.
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. What is your position on having a committee to oversee monies coming from casinos, lotteries, etc.?
Sounds like a good idea. I don't know much about it, but I have talked to people in on the nation, and they feel that they are contributing what they should be contributing. But I also feel that sometimes the lottery doesn't give the monies where it was originally supposed to go to, and I think that we should be examining those millions and millions of dollars that are going out to people, and that we should be figuring out a way to use more of that money for the infrastructure and et cetera that the state needs for funds.
Thank you. Beryl, the next question is for you. What do you propose to do at the legislature to protect water and preserve water rights in Arizona?
water is going to be the next oil wars. And we need to put in place legislature rules. We need to change society's way of thinking about water. We need to put water at the top when it comes to the environment, because right now the environment is at the very bottom when it comes to water. And without a good environment, the rest of us are not going to be able to either survive, because when you lose the environment, you lose, well, most of you know what we lose. We lose a lot of things. So water has to be priority.
Thank you. 30 seconds?
Yep. This is going to be one of the top legislative issues in the next, I would say, 2 to 4 years. I really want to applaud the various stakeholders of the Drought Committee who have been trying to get together and put all of these different interests into one document that the legislature will then be approving. And I'm told in the next legislative cycle. What I really want to pay attention to is addressing the discrepancies in agriculture and in residential allotments, aside from the jurisdictional allotments for water usage. What I'm really hoping that we see in that plan are mitigations and offsets for water consumption.
Thank you. Andres, the next question is for you. If elected, what steps would you take to continue to diversify Arizona's economy, and what industries and sectors would you focus on?
Thank you. I mentioned the geographics of our legislative district not too long ago. That includes the downtown economy and the west side, both of which, our economies are booming, and I think that what we really ought to do is look for an opportunity that balances both residential growth but also mixed use. And I think with that we have to pay attention to the development of our historic neighborhoods and making sure that they're also getting a part of the equation, because they deserve to be listened to. They've been here for a long, long time. I will say that I am looking forward to being an advocate for transportation as well, because I think what we've dealt with on a statewide level is a continued decrease of revenue going to our counties and jurisdictions via our highway user revenue funds. It's a fancy way for saying our ability to repair our roads. And if you've driven around in Tucson, I'm sure that you've hit your head on your car a couple of times because of our potholes, and so we need to do something about that.
Thank you.
Could
30
you
seconds.
repeat the question?
I will repeat the question. If elected, what steps would you take to continue to diversify Arizona's economy, and what industries and sectors would you focus on?
I think we need to diversify into more sustainable jobs. We need to be creating jobs, i.e., repurposing buildings and commercial things, resurfacing our roads, redoing our roads rather than making bigger roads. So, sorry.
Thank you. Beryl, we'll move on to the next question, which is for you. What is your position on work requirements for those on access?
I think that some people on access should be working, but I think that there are a numbers of people who are on access that can't work for various reasons, and I think it should be a case by case rather than a blanket everybody has to.
Thank you.
And I have a minute?
30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. I really refuse to buy into any gimmicks that try to take away health care from folks. I think, I trust in our staff and making sure that we look at any abuse within the system, but more than anything, I wish we were talking about expanding access to health care instead of, being punitive or restrictive, which I think too often now is the intent of a question like this by our legislature.
Thank you. Andres, we'll move on to the next question, which is for you. As a legislator, what will you do to combat the special interest and priorities of such groups as lobbyists or special interest groups?
Thank you. Every sector I've learned over the last, 2 months since the primary has its own lobbyists, and so I think there are good lobbyists and there are lobbyists that I just disagree with. I was very intentional in saying that they are not bad lobbyists. However, what I do think we have to do, what I'm paying attention to, is my legislative district. What are the most important things that are going to improve quality of life, improve access to health care, to education? And so as long as that representative is wanting to have a conversation with me about how to move folks forward, I will take a meeting, but they will never, ever be able to buy this district or my vote.
Thank you.
Well, I would agree with that. I don't think that, I think I would need to listen to everybody that comes to talk. I have been in situations, however, where special interest groups have swayed certain people. And that's been very frustrating because I was on the other side. So I think that we have to be careful that how we allow anybody to influence us.
Thank you. Beryl, the next question is for you. What is your position toward the expansion of regulations on gun ownership in Arizona?
Could you repeat that question?
What is your position toward the expansion of regulations on gun ownership in Arizona?
Well, I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth. I don't think that guns cause the problems. I think that mental health caused the problems. And I think that we should be looking at mental health and creating more programs to deal with mental health. Because I think by approaching it from that direction, we're going to solve a lot of the problems that are being caused by guns. We all know that there's most of the things that have happened have been because of mental health problems. So if we solve those problems through society, then I think we would solve the other problems that guns are being blamed for.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
I got an email sent to me the other day. I have an F from the National Rifle Association, and so my feelings are hurt. But more than anything, I know that this is a very serious issue, and that's why I have that rating. Is because I do believe in background checks. I believe on a ban on bump stocks, and I believe in looking at gun violence as a health epidemic. And so I think what we have to acknowledge is that nobody is trying to infringe on Second Amendment rights. What we are trying to do is to protect our kids, to protect our communities that are affected very much by gun violence in our state.
Thank you. Andres, what is your position on increasing educational and vocational training in prisons to reduce recidivism?
Thank you. Criminal justice reform is one of the areas that I'm looking most forward to finding a bipartisan compromise because there is so much money that is being spent and lost as a result of us not looking at who we're detaining, why we're detaining them, and what are we doing when they're in our systems. And so I look forward to increasing any opportunity that prepares folks for reentry, that allows them to focus on getting a good job when they get out. And it starts with something as simple as offering a printer for a resume inside of the detention facilities to, of course, looking at some of the mandatory sentencing that is really filling our jail beds every single day. I mean, for less than a sweet and low packet equivalent of narcotics now, you can get up to 4 years in detention. It's costly, guys, and what we have to do is look for alternative ways to detain folks and to make sure that we're not giving them a death sentence when they enter our system.
Thank you.
Well, I have to agree with Kano. I think also, though, we also need programs that send people to keep people out of prison, to address their whatever reasons why they're being sent to prison if it's nonviolent crimes. I think we need to try to figure out a way to help those people stay in society because their families are affected, their livelihoods are affected, they become felons, etc. So we need to deal with that.
Thank you. The last question of the evening is for you, Beryl. What do you think the legislature should do to address college affordability and expand access?
Is this a question, access, referring to access to colleges?
Yes, it's around college.
The state constitution says education should be as free as possible. And I think that over the years, we have become further and further away from that concept. And partly because we end up taking our monies and spending it on something else besides what it's designated for. I think we need to relook and re-examine where we're taking our money from, and we should be trying to make colleges and et cetera as free as possible.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think access to community colleges, to higher education needs to be our priority, and it's unfortunate that this legislature has not seen it that way. I want to applaud our 3 universities and our community colleges statewide for making access a priority of theirs. The reality is that those costs have gone up because our legislature has refused to invest in them. I want to turn that around. I'm looking forward to there also being some discussions about partnership and how we can ensure that when we have folks enrolled in a 4-year program, that they stay in a 4-year program or a 5-year program like I did.
Thank you. We'll move on to our closing statements. The first closing statement will be given by Andres. You have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you so much. Well, I have enjoyed spending this time with you this evening, and I want to thank, of course, the staff of the Commission for being here and our constituents. I hope what you've been able to see here are 2 folks who are ready to serve and who are willing to serve. I am so proud of being able to be the product of our public schools, of being raised by a single mom, and knowing that my success and my ability to move forward in this life was determined on how I was helping others around me, especially in helping to lift them up. And so I'm looking forward to being one of your state representatives, because what I truly feel is that what we need is a complete change of the folks that we send up there. It starts with electing David Garcia as governor. It starts with electing a new U.S. senator, and more than anything, supporting folks who will stand up for public education, for transportation and infrastructure, and for women who we've not had a chance to talk to about tonight. I'm proud to be endorsed by Planned Parenthood. So there are a lot of reasons to run. I think for me, it's all about helping lift people up in the district that raised me. Thank you.
Thank you. Beryl, 1 minute.
I hope that people will take an opportunity to look at some of the statements I've made in other places. I am not a very good speaker. I'm not a very good person that comes off easily and glibly. But we didn't come before you today with a stack of facts and figures, as you know. Statistics can convince people that pigs can fly and ants can swim. What we offer is years of experience in activism, which has taught us how to seek out the answers from many sources. Our life experiences have shown that listening to all sides of an issue help bring about the best solutions. We do have our own agenda, which I hope you will check out. However, we believe that a state representative and elected official represents all the people. We will be coming back to you holding as many open houses, public meetings as necessary in order to hear your solutions to the problems. We want to serve you, the people of LD3 and the state of Arizona, to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating in our forum. And to our audience members, we thank all of you who took time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov/voter-dashboard, as seen behind me, for a customized experience to find information on the general election, the candidates, the issues, and to view this debate on demand. Please fill out the debate evaluation form and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the commission and will help improve future debates. Thank you all for coming this evening, and you're welcome to stay and speak directly with the candidates. Thank you.